Dun 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 dun. Two peas. Mission Impossible. Let's go. Dun 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 dun.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Two Peas on a podcast in the house. Gerald here with you. My boy Nick on the other side. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 tonight.
Dead. Not
Dead
alive
ass.
reckoning. Dead.
Yes.
Dead.
Dead Reckoning. It's a Part 1, which will probably come up a little bit in our review, but that's the movie we'll be covering this week. Nick, how are you, man? How's everything going down there in New York? Or up there in New York?
Are you mad? Are you mad that this is a part 1? Now, this one told you it was a part 1. It wasn't like Spider-Verse. This one told you it was a part 1.
Hold that thought.
Oh, jeez.
Now, I knew Spider-Verse was a part 1 in my defense.
God.
Or I should say that I knew Across was a part 2. But anyway, same concept. But hold that, because that's going to play into my ranking and my review a little bit with this movie. So it did not mess with me, as you say. Well, how's life, man? You're good? Everything's good? New York treating you well?
I'm wonderful. I'm busy as ever. Just, trying to work on Nikolai's Kitchen stuff. New Nikolai's Kitchen coming this week.
I saw you did some
super
cooking.
Excited.
Yeah, some live cooking stuff.
I've been back to live cooking, Friday night food streams. I've been back to that on Twitch over at Nikolai's Kitchen. Like I said, Nikolai's Kitchen episodes are coming back. I did a guest spot on So Wizard.
I heard.
The ranch soda. You remember Joey drowned his body in ranch soda and vomited everywhere for an hour?
Yeah, I heard it.
I got to go on So Wizard and review a Neil Breen movie called Fateful Findings, which is the 100 of the greatest minutes you'll ever spend watching a film of all time. I don't know how poor Tom Cruise is gonna compare to Neil Breen here. We'll see where the score ends up tonight, but
tall order, man. But I heard about half of that episode. I was listening to my car and had that nice little talk about past lives at the top with So Wizard. We had just covered it on our show, so yeah, that was cool. I love those guys. It was great to hear you on the show there. So that was really cool.
Thank you, everyone, by the way, for the kindness for the past lives review as well. Really enjoyed that one. That was a great discussion, and it was a great film to check out. I'm still thinking about it, G. Still thinking about it. That's
too.
How
you know what's kind of sad though? You know what's kind of sad though is it's not playing here anymore. It's already gone from the AMC and stuff.
It might be gone here. I'm not sure. I haven't checked.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed because my wife wants to see it now. She's like, "Oh, I want to go see it," and it's not playing anywhere, so we're gonna have to probably wait for it to start streaming. But from past lives to Mission Impossible, we're kind of shifting gears here a little bit this week. But at the top of the show, Nicholas, we start with one big question. So we bring a question that can be somewhat related to the movie or the universe and tangentially, however you want to phrase it. But whatever you want to ask me and whatever I want to ask you, and that's kind of how we get started each week. So I have my one big question, which is related to Mission Impossible tangentially. And I had this question in the bank before I even knew this was going to be a segment. I've been kind of wanting to ask you about this when we talked about this movie.
I'm ready.
Do you want me to ask you first? I don't remember what we did last week. I think I went first last week, but do you want me to go first?
We asked each other questions last week, Gerald. That's how it worked.
We did.
That's the name of the segment. That's how the
we
segment
had this segment. We had this segment last week.
One big question. Now you already asked me a question about how the segment works, so now you're done. Now I get to go. Right?
That's the question.
Is that how that works?
That was the question. Yeah. So here's my one big question for you, Nick. Is there anyone that you can think of, and I'm talking about in the history of film, at least theatrically, is there anyone more important to the action genre as an actor than Tom Cruise?
Wow, that's tough, man. That is tough stuff.
Tom Cruise.
That's tough sledding, man. Because, you think about the stuff that, Arnie did in the 80s and 90s and Stallone and all those action guys and everything. Wow. This movie,
if you're on the spot,
built on the shoulders of those kind of old school 80s and 90s action films. I'm gonna say no. I'm still gonna give that one to Arnie just by the very slight edge. Obviously modern sense, modern sense, like Arnie's not the big budget blockbuster action dude that he was, 30, 40 years ago. But, yeah, I mean, True Lies is one of my favorite films of all time, like Terminator, T2, like all those like Arnie movies that he did like back during the 80s and 90s. I mean, that was like the foundation upon which modern action cinema was built, frankly. So I still got to hand that one to Arnie, but yeah, modern sensibility, nobody's touching TC. Nobody. I'm sorry, Wayne, T to the C. Sorry.
To the C.
Sorry.
I kind of am in agreement with you. I think Arnold is probably the one person that would kind of get in the way of that being a yes, but it's really close, man. I mean,
if Arnie's career didn't exist, then I'm going to buy that argument for T to the C, but
yeah. But I think he's a pretty solid runner up though. I mean, there's, like you mentioned Stallone, and I mean, even The Rock in the last, 15 years or so has done some really great stuff in the action realm, but and there's just something about Tom Cruise that not only is he kicking ass in these action movies, but he's like bringing people out to the cinema. He's a big champion for cinema. Like he's just really important, I feel like, for like the summer blockbuster and the action movie. He's just an important figure.
I got it. I got the right answer. You ready?
All right.
Dan, just for you, Vin Diesel.
For Dan and for Brad.
Audio listeners, Gerald just literally deflated. If you've ever seen a human being deflate, that's what that looked like.
Vin Diesel. Wow, his best work's is Groot. Am I right? All right, you got one big question for me, Nick. You did good there, by the way. I agree with you, Arnold.
I love it.
Go ahead.
I came out of the theater instantaneously thought of this because one of the things that all of these Mission Impossible films have in common, one of the tropes of Mission Impossible, even going back to the TV series, is the mask. Like you're wearing a mask and you're dressed up as somebody else, and it's like literally the perfect likeness. So if you one person that you could wear the Mission Impossible mask. You could take that person. I mean, obviously that comes with like the voice changer and everything. One person, one mask. Whose would you wear? Whose mask would you wear? If you got to like anybody in the world.
Like
don't
in
say
any
Taylor
era.
Swift. Don't say Taylor Swift.
In any era, like past, present.
Whoever you want, man. Whoever you want. It's all you, man. Whoever you want.
That's a tough one.
One mask.
This is for like a day or whatever. You just get to be this person for a day.
Whatever. I didn't define any parameters outside of that. You could, if you don't mess up the mask and get it all dingy and filthy, you could probably ride it for a little while. Who knows? Up to you.
Wow. Man, that's a tough one. I mean, I keep thinking in my mind. I keep going to Brad Pitt. I think I would be.
I thought you were going to say Brad Hargis, and I was like, "That's a big pull, man. That's a big pull."
I could actually be Brad Hargis. Just put on one of those like golfer hats, and I'm basically him right now.
That is true.
No, I think Pitt, man. I don't know whether he was making a movie, he's on a set, or I just feel like he's a fun dude. He's just so cool, and like just to be in that world, man, just for a couple hours would be kind of crazy. That's the one that's coming right off the top of my head.
Just as him, just to walk around and just to, have people come up to you and talk to you and all these different things.
Yeah.
Just to kind of experience like life in Pitt's shoes.
Yeah. Just talk to the ladies, of course. Hey, I'm Brad Pitt. How are you?
His first act in Brad Pitt's body with the thing is going to be like, man. Can I get Taylor Swift's phone number? Can somebody? Yeah. Tell her Brad Pitt wants to talk to her.
Yeah, can you get me into backstage at the Taylor show? I'm Brad Pitt.
Yeah, tell her Brad Pitt wants to see her right away.
I don't know. Do you have an answer for that, for your question?
God, I didn't even think of an answer for it, honestly. I like your answer, though, because I like not trying to do anything nefarious or anything like that, but just wanting to see what it's like to walk around in that world, to like see what it's like in that world maybe, and then you could really like if it gets overwhelming for you or whatever, you could just take it off and you can walk away.
Take it off.
It's really really interesting, man. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't really think of an answer for it. I was thinking.
I just kept thinking Brad Pitt. George Clooney would be another one. Just these guys are just like cool when they're out there. They're living the life out there.
Yeah. It would have to be somebody where I could experience or do something that I otherwise would never ever get to do. That would be the main parameter. It'd have to be something that I'd never ever get an opportunity to do otherwise. Like, I don't know. Maybe Bill Gates, and then I would just like, just like go to the ATM and be like, "What? I'm Bill Gates. Just spit money out at me."
Yeah. It
And
comes with the
then,
knowledge of his PIN number, you know.
yeah, comes with every.
Yeah.
Listen, if I got the tech to make the mask, I got the tech to hack Bill Gates' bank accounts, of course.
Hell yeah, please. All right, man. So good big question there for both of us. That was our one big
I
question
like that.
segment this week. And it's time to proper get into the review for Mission Impossible
Dun, dun, dun,
7
dun,
Dead
dun,
Reckoning
dun.
Part 1. Holy Lord, what a title. And we start each review with our rating
ready.
out of 10
I'm
at the
ready.
top. And then we discuss
Oop.
ready, set, go.
Boom.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. That's because it's a part 1, isn't it? I did a 9. I did a 9 out of 10. So once
So we got
again,
an 8 and we got a
Nick
9.
is better than Gerald. Once again, we've proven the 3
now that's
films in
gonna-
a row now.
That's going to force me to do math, though. So what does that make our cumulative 8.5?
That's 17 out of 20, Gerald. So it's like 8.5. That's gonna make me do math. They're 1 point off.
No. So 8.5 out of 10 from the P's. But yeah, an 8 from me, a 9 from you. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. Nick, so let's address the elephant in the room with the part 1 thing, because you brought it up a few times already.
I got it.
Like,
I got it.
to me, Well, I know you're kind of digging at me a little bit, which is cool, but I think one of the reasons that I did rate this an 8 is because that did not bother me. It's in the title. So going into the movie, I was kind of like, it's going to be exposition. It's going to be setting up the story, which of course it does. So I was like worried that the action was going to kind of be lacking a little bit. In my head, I was kind of thinking that. I was thinking like maybe we saw the best action stuff in the trailer because we're going to have to set up this whole Dead Reckoning story or what. Anyway, I was just kind of had this notions that didn't end up being true, by the way. But when I started to kind of see that was not going to be the case, and also, I hate long movies, Nick. So
I know.
Not only is this a part 1, this is also, what was it, like 240 or something like that? I think it was a while, right?
It was pushing up on the 3-hour mark for sure.
I wonder if I have it in front of me here, actually. 163 minutes. So
Wow.
What is that?
Yeah.
Again, I don't know math, so I feel like that's 243 though.
Didn't feel like
so. Yeah, I know it didn't. So I think, you rated it higher than I did, so I want to hear your general thoughts before we get into spoilers. But my general thoughts are, I was surprised that the part 1 and the runtime really did not hinder this movie virtually at all for me. And going into it, I was worried that those two things were going to really bring it down for me. So I love when a movie turns the tables on me and kind of surprises me, which this one did. I really, really enjoyed it.
I'm surprised that this surprised you because Fallout was so good.
Yeah.
And I know you love Fallout.
I do.
So I'm surprised that you were surprised that, like, by loving this movie as much as you did, or by enjoying this movie as much as you did. Because I walked into this thing, my expectations were legitimately sky high, like up on top of a mountain, ready to jump off like Tom Cruise in this movie. And if you've never seen the whole, like, there's a whole YouTube video that they released about like the setup and prep and everything like that for that stunt.
Right, behind the scenes or whatever.
It's amazing that that's so well done and so well filmed, and just because it's Tom Cruise really riding off that cliff and jumping off that motorcycle, even though you've seen the making of, and even though you've seen all that kind of stuff, like the hair still stand up on the back of your neck because it's still such an amazing stunt to watch. It's still like really, really great. So I had sky high expectations for this film. I went into them and I'm not familiar. I saw Rogue Nation, but I haven't seen any of the other Mission Impossible films. Maybe the first one ages ago when it first came out.
Did you see Ghost Protocol with him in Dubai or whatever? That was probably that might be my second favorite to Fallout. I really like that one too.
I haven't seen any of the other ones. It is my mission now to go back, and I never.
I see what you did there.
I never.
I see what you did there.
If I choose to accept it, so it's. I had sky high expectations, and I wondered if this film could meet them. And if I had one word to describe this movie, Gerald, one word and one word only, relentless. This film does
Yeah.
not let up. It doesn't let you, and that's why 240 doesn't really feel like that long of a movie, because the pace is ratcheted up to 11 literally the whole time. The film is moving forward so quickly, so constantly.
Pacing is great.
It's absolutely excellent, and it just does not stop throwing these insane action set pieces, this insane stunt choreography,
man.
all these amazing sequences at you over and over and over again. Gerald, our first quote unquote official episode that we like released and actually did was The Flash.
Right.
Isn't The Flash embarrassed to be released in the same summer as Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1?
It should be. It should be.
Holy cow, like the absolutely incredible action choreography, so much practical effects work done, practical stunt work done. I don't understand, like, maybe it's just a yearning for this because we've been drowned in so much CGI noise from these comic book movies, but God, this movie's a breath of fresh air as far as an action film goes. I think of John Wick 4 that we got earlier this year, also insanely brilliant stunt choreography the whole way through that film. It's phenomenal. It's unbelievable. And this is only the first half of basically like a 5-hour movie. What are they going to do in part 2 that's going to top everything that they did in this? How are they going to touch this, G?
I mean, they're going to. You know they're going to. Tom Cruise is a crazy bastard.
I don't know how.
I saw these interviews that they did. You were talking about behind the scenes stuff or whatever, and Tom Cruise was like, I want to drive a motorcycle off a cliff. And McQuarrie's like, okay, well, I want to wreck it. I want to do a train wreck. And they're just like going back and forth, all this crazy shit, you know, and then they made it happen to tremendous effect, I felt like, in this movie, as you've already alluded to. But one thing I want to say, too, and this came up in our fan feedback that we'll get into later. I don't know if this question got picked, but just generally speaking, it's going to inherently be compared to a movie like John Wick 4 because it's the same, you know, kind of season of films and action, 2023 or whatever. And I think what kind of sets this a little bit apart from John Wick, really any of them, but definitely John Wick 4 this year, is the acting in this movie I thought was really, really good too.
Yeah.
Not to take anything
100%.
away from John Wick 4, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like that movie really stands on its stunts and its production design and its set pieces. Whereas this movie has all that, but then it has these really tremendous performances. Like, you know, Ethan Hunt really is connected to his team and he kind of has that emotional attachment to a lot of the characters. And I felt like the performances really kind of play to that. And then some of the newcomers we had, like Haley Atwell, for example, Pom Klementieff, who was a standout for me in this movie. She was probably my favorite part of this film.
My goodness.
So good. I love Vanessa Kirby in the movie. I mean, really all the women in this film are totally kick-ass in this movie. They really carried this film. Them and Tom Cruise's insanity jumping off of cliffs carried this film. But you know what I mean? I just feel like there was a dedication to the acting too, and not to kind of make that a forethought. It was all also kind of front of mind for these actors. I felt like in this movie, you had the best of both worlds there.
There was a dedication, and I mean, this is the movie that, like, you know, they filmed like right after stuff was opening back up after COVID. This is the movie we all heard, like the rant that Tom Cruise went on, where he wanted people to mask up so they could make these movies, so people that work in the industry could get their mortgages paid and all these different things. And it's interesting to talk about all that, and like, you know, because now SAG-AFTRA is on strike and everything like that. But it's really, really a love letter to movie making in general. Like really everybody has dialed it up to 11 for this thing. All the performances are absolutely fantastic. Like you said, all the action, the stunt choreography, all the amazing action set pieces are so good. Like I said, it's so relentlessly paced and it moves by so beautifully, so quickly, so amazingly. I mean, I'm going to struggle like really, really hard. And I don't know if you've got anything that really stood out to you as a dislike or anything for this movie, but I'm going to struggle really hard to think of anything that I didn't like about it.
All right, well, let's get into the spoiler talk. Let's just kind of talk about the movie willy-nilly, if you will. So going forward, guys, if you have not seen the new Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, skip ahead or come back after you see it, because going forward, the rest of the episode will be spoilery. So
Tom Cruise jumps off a cliff.
Let's get into it. Tom Cruise rides a
to...
bike off of a cliff. Sorry.
Ooh, jeez.
It's on all the posters, trailers, but we apologize for being the ones to tell you that.
Oh, boy.
So when it comes to dislikes, I know you gave it a 9 out of 10. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I don't know. I feel like dislike might be a little bit too strong of a word because I don't think there was anything I really disliked in this movie. I did want to ask you though, how did it sit with you, the kind of AI villain entity kind of deal that was, our main big bad, if you will, in this movie? Did you kind of buy that? I feel like that was kind of resonant with what's going on in the world right now, honestly.
I mean, you had S.I. Morales, who was basically like the kind of human antagonist, the villain of the piece, who's fantastic, so
Yeah.
menacing, so chilling, always one step ahead. I really, really love that it still really emphasizes the usage of the entity kind of as a tool, and things like that. So I really, really liked that. But I mean, I never thought of it like as in the entity was the only villain of the piece or anything like that. Because again, you had S.I. Morales, who was really, really great. Palm Clementieff, who is also really just unbelievably
So good,
good
man.
in this
So good.
movie. I mean, it's is it relevant? Sure, it's definitely relevant. It's definitely in terms of AI. I think that's a big conversation, and that's a big question to ask about AI. Is like using it properly, using it, for the benefit of mankind versus weaponizing it, which is basically what they want to do. Like governments and all these intelligence agencies and everybody's basically racing to try to get to this thing first because they all want to weaponize it, you know?
Well, for me, I mean, and again, we're talking spoilers, guys, but I had to take at least a point off for my girl Rebecca Ferguson and the fate of her character Ilsa in this movie. They get reunited, you know, he finds her out there and they get reunited. She rejoins the team. Um, I love Rebecca Ferguson in general as an actress. I love her in this series of films, and we lose her. She
Yeah.
dies in this movie.
Yeah.
One of the major characters that dies in the film, and I don't know. I felt like I just wish that hadn't happened. I feel like that did not have to happen. I feel like somebody else could have passed or whatever. I just didn't want to see Ilsa, so that kind of hurt me a little bit. I didn't want her character to go away. And
But hey, it
of
was
course, it's Mission
supposed to hurt you.
Impossible.
It was supposed to hurt
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. It did.
It was
It
supposed
did.
to affect you emotionally because,
And then
obviously she's been around for a while. She's attached to, or like the audience is attached to her. Ethan's character is
right.
attached to her. Well, Ethan, yeah, Tom Cruise's character is attached to her. So yeah, it's supposed to hurt you, G. It's
It's
called
supposed to be
emotionally
emotional. I
responding to
know.
the film.
I know. I know. I mean, you're right. We're talking about dislikes, and I just disliked it. But you're right. I mean, it did make me feel the way I was essentially supposed to feel. And then I also love Vanessa Kirby as an actress as well. And I love seeing her as kind of this like almost like sympathetic villain in this movie. And I thought she was somewhat underused.
I'd
Like,
agree with that. Yeah.
she kind of didn't have as much screen presence as I kind of thought she was going to have from the trailers and stuff like that, and her just kind of electricity that she has anyway. So I felt like her character of Alana was somewhat underused. And then when we get a lot of her on the train, it's really essentially Haley Atwell wearing her mask. Of course, we know, it's Vanessa Kirby doing the acting, which was
Right. Right.
phenomenal as well. But I don't know. That Alana character could have been a little more prominent and a little more kind of mischievous than she was. I felt like she was just kind of there, which disappointed me a little bit because I love her so much. But those little things, the scene at the airport kind of drug on a little like where the hell is airport security? Like what's going on here? Like it just kind of it was just mayhem for like a long time. And I feel like that's not good for TSA or whatever. So I don't know, there was just a little nip and tuck that could have happened here and there, but I mean those are very, very small things. It's obvious that we both love the film. What was your favorite action sequence? What did you enjoy the most from an action perspective?
The alley fight
Ooh,
with
you
Palm
did? Okay.
Clementieff, T to the C, and I'm not sure who the other. I think it was just kind of
Was one of the
not
goons or
anybody
whatever.
really
Yeah.
as important in that sequence, but like how wonderful. I mean, we've all seen the amazing like super action choreography, T to the C jumping off the cliff, and all the like super big, expensive, big budget set pieces like the train, the whole train, like literally all that, and even the airport and that kind of stuff. But this was a fight in a Venice alleyway that literally was as wide as a person,
Yeah.
And the fact that they got that in there, they made it feel claustrophobic in the way that trying to fight in that space really, really would feel. Like some filmmakers like would have built. I'm gonna guess that Christopher McQuarrie probably shot it in like a real actual alleyway like that. How they actually
Probably.
pulled that off or whatever, I'm not 100% sure, but it makes it feel so claustrophobic. Palm Clementieff is unbelievable. Like, how
So good,
great
man.
of a performance does she give? Because she really doesn't speak at all until the very end of the film.
That's right. Yep.
Like, it's all of a very just visual performance. It's all just based on like visual cues, her expressiveness. So menacing, such an absolutely incredible, just badass character.
And so different
Unbelievable.
from what we know her as, which is really Mantis from the Guardians films, which I know you're a huge fan of. But she's great in those. But so
She's good, yeah.
different. Like she's kind of like slapstick comedic in those movies, and in this one, like you said, she's very menacing, very kind of mysterious. You know,
Yeah.
like you said, she had virtually no dialogue, and
just amazing the way that whole sequence played together. And you know, I like a film taking the time to kind of relish in an action set piece for a little while, because that's intercut with Rebecca Ferguson's character, you know, fighting against S.I. Morales.
Mm-hmm.
That's intercut with that. But like the film doesn't just kind of quickly push you through it, quick cut, like some of those modern action films do, and shove you on from it. It takes the time to really just show the battle, the struggle that Ethan is going through in that alleyway. Like, it seems like, I mean, really, you've got two people at the ends of this impossibly narrow alleyway. Like, how on earth are you going to get out of that situation? Just phenomenal. Like, the tension in this movie is like edge of your seat kind of stuff. Literally, like it's Tom Cruise. It's T to the C. You know he's going to be okay. You know there's a part 2 coming. But even still, even in these scenes, you manage to feel that tension, and that's just genius filmmaking by Christopher McQuarrie. You know, that's just, it takes a very skilled hand to ratchet up tension in a scene, especially in a scene where you know that Cruise is going to make it out. You know that Cruise is going to be okay, like somewhere subliminally. What a fantastic scene. I think just because I loved it, because it was so much lower tech than all the other like big budget, huge action set pieces, I think that's why it resonated with me just a little bit more. Not to take anything away from those, because they're still incredible.
I think, I mean, I'm gonna have to say the train sequence, the last like half hour or whatever. I mean, it was just one thing on top of another, no pun intended, of different calamities that they found themselves in, and different characters were kind of like central focus. And of course, that was also when we got Cruise doing his thing off the cliff. That's been, you know, that we've seen 100 times or in the trailers and footage. But he wasn't on the train in the beginning. You know, there was a lot of really cool stuff happening on the train before he even showed up on the train. And that's when we got a lot of our other characters kind of focal point, like Haley Atwell really shined in that train sequence a little bit.
Yep.
She got a part where she's wearing the mask of Vanessa Kirby, but also as herself too. And she got to kind of be that second hero. And then it comes to a point where she's accepting, you know, the mission to be part of the team. And I really, really hope that we get to continue to see her, because I thought she was an amazing addition to this. And I thought it was pretty flawlessly, like they introduced her pretty flawlessly, you know, at the airport.
Yeah.
She's obviously super charismatic, and we're just kind of drawn to her inherently anyway from her other work and just how, you know, charismatic that she is in general. And Tom Cruise and her, I thought, had great chemistry. I love the chase scene.
Oh yeah, the little Fiat dude.
Yeah, the comedic timing was great
so
with that.
Good.
I thought.
Yeah, that was a hilarious scene. It was. I mean,
it
again,
really was.
Mission Impossible always does great car chases. That was easily another example. And then like the great thing about it too is the way that they did like the way that they shot around that, because their opposite hands were handcuffed. So like at first she was driving. Well, that was before they got the Fiat. But like at first she's driving, and then she has him drive. But like their opposite hands are handcuffed. So like he's got to like reach over with his other hand, like handcuffed to her hand. Like it was really, really interesting, an interesting way to shoot that, because like you could have easily just been like, no, they handcuffed these hands just to make it easier or whatever. But I think they just wanted the challenge of trying to make it. And of course, you know that they drove those cars around for real in at least some of those scenes. So
I know
it was probably more like, I bet you anything Tom Cruise was just like, but what if our other hands were handcuffed instead?
I know. Yeah, some crazy shit, you know. Obviously, we get Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames back as part of the team too. Really, really good supporting characters in this whole franchise. I mean, they really are a 1-2 punch that I feel like. I'm going to say they're one of the better like duos in
Yeah.
action movies. I mean, the two
Yeah.
of them. I mean, they're just so good playing off each other, and you can tell that their mission, quote unquote, is really to protect Ethan and to protect the mission. That's
Yeah.
what they're about. But they do it in such this like lighthearted, funny way, especially Simon Pegg. I mean, the dude's freaking hilarious in everything
Yeah.
he's in, and this is no exception. But I loved having them back here. I don't know, man. I mean, I mean, take Tom Cruise out of the picture. We won't talk about Ethan. Aside from Ethan, like what character in this movie were you most like, this is my shit. This is my person. This is my standout.
Probably, like I said, Palm Clementieff
Me too.
was
Me too.
incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, no dialogue. Like she is literally just like has absolutely no dialogue until the very end of the movie, or maybe she says like a couple things, like one or two things here or there. Like, dude, she's driving that like that's the great thing too. Is like they're driving this little Fiat, and she's driving what like this giant like battle Hummer or whatever
Yep.
that thing was. That thing was absolutely incredible, and like she's like a tank commander driving this thing. Like she really feels like she belongs in and is commanding every bit of that vehicle. And like I said, that alleyway fight and just everything else that she does in this movie, she is, God, she's good. God, she is just so good. I can't wait to see what else she's gonna do from here. And
she was the standout for me too. I mean, I was kind of hoping that's where you were going to stay, because I mean, it would be her, and it would be probably Haley Atwell from like a performance standpoint.
Haley Atwell was great. She really was.
But I mean, Palm Clementieff is just, I mean, it was unbelievable, man.
She really sold that kind of like where she was like, she's definitely a thief and she's definitely in like that criminal world, but she's not anywhere near the level of this stuff. And she kind of sells that naivete really, really well, of she's in way over her head and like she thinks she can take care of herself. She thinks she's got the skills to kind of take care of herself, but it turns out she really doesn't. And T to the C's got to swoop in and save her and all these things. I thought she played all that stuff really, really well.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. I apologize, but it was much like the Asian actress in John Wick Chapter 4 stole the show for me. It was its daughter. You know what I'm talking about? The hotel.
Yeah. The concierge of
yeah.
Whichever, I can't remember where that hotel was now.
But you know what I'm talking about. But
yeah, I know.
She was badass in the action sequences in that movie too, and it kind of it was reminiscent of that a little bit in this movie. I thought Palm Clementieff was, but yeah, she was the standout for me. Like I said, I freaking am a fanboy of Vanessa Kirby, so I wish they had used her a little bit more. But she was just kind of an afterthought, unfortunately. Even though I did really love seeing her pop up here, but yeah, it's got to be. I mean, Palm Clementieff has got to be the standout for me too. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I mean, and her and like I said, S.I. Morales as Gabriel is he oozes menace. Like he is just a deliciously evil, menacing dude. Like you believe like that he's a threat the whole way through this movie. Like you believe him as a credible threat. Like literally from the word jump, you really do.
I love how Gabriel would be like, he wasn't worried about the outcome because he already knew like what the entity had prophesized, so he was just like, well, this is what's going to happen. You're going to die tomorrow. Like, it's no big deal. You know what I mean? And it was very kind of like eerie that he was so confident in his kind of villainy or whatever you call it.
It's like, it's great that like, when the whole thing with the key, because the whole MacGuffin in this film is a key that is separated into two halves that you have to, put together to be able to access, like, I guess that's wherever the entity source code or whatever is. We'll find out in part 2, because the whole quest of this movie is basically A, to assemble the key, but B, they're also trying to figure out what it unlocks, because nobody knows.
Right.
Like, nobody knows what it actually unlocks, and that's kind of what they're trying to figure out. Is all that. What'd you think of the opening action sequence, by the way, on the Russian sub or whatever?
I thought it was cool. I thought it was really well done, and it was it wasn't super predictable. Like I didn't know their own torpedo was going to end up hitting them or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool the way it climaxed there and then cut to the title cards. But I did the plot. what I'll let me say, I'll make a statement and then you can play off of it. But I think what was cool about this movie, which has not always been the case with the Mission Impossible films, and I don't really remember the TV show all too well, so I can't really speak on that. But in the movies, I think this one did a nice job of keeping it simple. Like it was kind of like that opening sequence, and then we have the really cool sequence in the CIA office or whatever it was,
Yeah, that was cool.
where Cruz comes in with the mask and he's
Yeah,
listening to
that
the
was
whole
cool.
meeting, or with Carrie Elways or whatever.
That was cool. Yeah.
So those two scenes kind of set up our exposition that we need to know about the key and all that stuff. And then, so if you're there for that first half hour, you kind of know what the deal is.
Yeah.
And from there, it's just basically action, some dialogue, here and there. But generally, it's not a lot of exposition after that opening, which I thought
Yeah.
was really impressive because, like we already said, this is a part one. So that
Yeah.
was really impressive that they kind of got that out of the way. And like I said, that's not always the case with the MI films. Sometimes they can be a little convoluted and a little confusing, if you will, in terms of plot.
Yeah.
But I didn't think this one was.
With the other two, and granted, like I said, I don't have the familiarity with the franchise that a lot of people have, but with the last two, there's a lot of different layers and a lot of secret shadow organizations and all these
Right.
different twists and turns. And, like Cavill's character turns against him in the last film. He's really the bad guy after thinking that he's not the bad guy and all that stuff. This film doesn't have any of that. And I think that's to its credit. It's very, very
Right.
simple. And this is literally just a chase film pretty much the entire way. All they're trying to do is just find this key and find out what it unlocks. And like literally it sets up the plot from the very beginning and all the way forward. It's just dead honest, like easy peasy. Like this is exactly what this is, and like I said, I think that's really to its credit. Does that mean we're not going to get that stuff in part two? I wouldn't necessarily go that far because it's Mission Impossible. I think we have to expect something like that.
Sure.
Just as an audience, but yeah, I like that this was just the simple, and the thing about this that's crazy is this movie's so good. This is just the setup for the payoff that's going to come.
I know.
That's how crazy. I mean, it's kind of like Across the Spider-Verse. Like that whole movie's just the setup for the payoff that's going to come and beyond. It's insane. Right. Insane, like that the setup movies are that good and that they're building to something that good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just unbelievable filmmaking. It really, really is.
I agree. And one thing I want to say before we wrap up is that I hope movies like this, we talked about John Wick 4 already, Top Gun Maverick last year, like these kinds of like summer blockbuster, big budget, kind of relying on their action set pieces to kind of carry them to success,
Practical
if you will, at
effects.
the box office. Yeah. I hope that we start getting some, notoriety and recognition for stunts, like at the Academy and
Right.
other prominent awards. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Like I'm watching behind the scenes of this movie that we're talking about, and like they had that train drive off, the head of the train drive off the cliff, and that when the bridge blows out in the movie, they had one chance to do that.
Yeah.
And they had a ton of cameras at different angles, and they're like, okay, wreck the train, drive it off a cliff. It'll blow up, and that'll be what we put in the movie. You know what I mean? We'll edit it however we have to edit it, and that'll be and that's a one take, one shot deal. And so many people, just think about that, dude. I mean, that had to make that happen, and how successful it was when you see it on camera, whether you see it in IMAX or otherwise. I mean, it looks phenomenal. I got to see it in a Dolby theater. I didn't see it in IMAX. I can only imagine what it would be in IMAX. Same thing with him driving off the cliff in the bike or whatever. Did you do an IMAX of this, by the way?
No, I didn't get
okay.
a chance to. I mean, it's gonna be few and far between, if ever,
Yeah.
that I have the time to even, because
it's far away from
it's
you.
gonna
Right?
double the length of any film for me. Because it's an hour drive away. Because I mean, it's basically it's 5 minutes from the airport I picked you up at for life.
Syracuse, right?
It's right near the airport there. So I mean, it's an hour hump up there just to watch the movie and then an hour back. Like I do not have that kind of free time.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
It's gonna have to be something super special, and I'm gonna have to catch it like right in some window where I don't have a bunch of other stuff going on, which is never the case.
For sure. But my point being, I just hope they start kind of taking notice of some of these guys and gals that are making these huge stunt pieces come to life and bringing millions of people to the theater to see them, and basically keeping cinema alive. You know what I mean? Like let's give them some notoriety and give them some awards. I mean, it's the least that they can do, I feel like. So
Yeah.
It's just amazing to see some of this stuff come to life on camera in movies like this.
Yeah, and I feel like audiences are not tired of this kind of movie because it's all so well made, it's all so well done. They're not cramming the cinemas with 3 to 4 of these a year. You're
Right.
getting. I mean, granted, like I said, we had John Wick 4 earlier this year, but do we have anything else that's going to play like this? Like that's going to be this
No,
kind of. I mean, Oppenheimer, but that's not the same type of movie.
that's a biopic. That's not going to be like
Yeah, it's just a biopic. It's not the same type of movie as this, but I mean that's going to be all very practical effects driven and practically shot and everything like that as well. But I mean, like the superhero thing, like I know I rag on them a lot, but I really think audiences, especially general audiences, I just think they're tired of it. I just think it become an oversaturation thing, especially when you factor in all the TV shows and all the other media that they're constantly cramming into this superhero genre. I think studios have gotten in there and they've milked that cash cow pretty much dry. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens with more Marvel stuff as it comes, and then I guess we'll see what happens with DC whenever they reboot in 2025, but I feel like audiences have just grown weary of it. But when was Fallout? 2019?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't get these kind of movies all the time, and I think audiences are hungry for really great, really, really well-made action blockbusters like this. I think audiences will line up in droves to see these kinds of movies over and over again because they're so special, they're so unique, and like I said, it's a love letter to movie making itself. It's a love letter to cinema. It's a love letter to all of these things, and audiences can feel that passion and that love and
Right.
that warmth that's coming off of the screen. They really can. A lot of this superhero stuff, it feels we know all the effects houses are dreadfully overworked for the CGI and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like it's a soulless, lifeless corporate product at this point.
I agree. It's sad. I mean, we were doing the programming for the show for the rest of the year, and I was looking at the release schedule, and I'm like thinking to myself, do we really want to cover like Blue Beetle? Like,
No.
I just don't know that I can. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that'll be the movie that week when it comes around, but I'm not excited about it anymore. But then you have movies like Mission Impossible and the John Wick films and the James Bond films when they come around. I mean, they've done almost like 40 of those,
Yeah.
but we're not tired of it because they space them out appropriately. They're not, like you said, oversaturating the fan base with James Bond, and they're always doing something new and inventive with each installment. And I think that Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning did that too. I mean, that train sequence was unlike anything we'd ever seen. It was literally like a 30-minute constant action sequence that did not stop for 30 consecutive minutes. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And one car would fall, and then they would be in this other car, and all this other shit's happening. And
I was worried that
like
would get long in the tooth of one train car being pulled down and then falling down, and then they'd make their way out of it somehow, and then they'd get to the next one, and then that one would start falling over the edge of the bridge. It doesn't get long in the tooth, though. The only part of that sequence that's dreadful, there's one part of that sequence. Do you know what it is? You know what I'm going to say? There's one part of that sequence that's just no. It's just roll your eyes worthy when it happens in that sequence.
But it wasn't the kitchen explosions and all that?
No. It was before the derailment. It was before the train derails.
Oh, you mean in the movie in general that was
in the movie
cringeworthy?
in the whole train sequence and the whole train action set piece, like literally the whole train action there was one scene when I let the movie have it because it gave me so much else that I really loved.
Tell me what it was.
It's Deus Ex Tom Cruise flying in the window, knocking the dude off, like right when he's about to take Haley Atwell's character down. Like all of a sudden, Cruise, there's no way they could have planned or predicted, like Cruise's character could have planned or predicted that. He just crashes into the train, like at that exact moment, like that pure happenstance. Of course he does. That's Hollywood. Like you got to give the movie one or two of those. Like you got to let it have it. It's one of those movies. It's one of those moments where, and the same thing happens. Like the wind catches his parachute, and then he gets pulled into the other guy. It's like
yeah.
It's like listen. George Lucas tried to make a whole movie out of that in 1999 with the Phantom Menace, with Jar Jar like taking out battle droids. All right, like just random occurrences just happening, like, and he's surviving by the seat of his pants. But like I said, in this kind of movie, that's the only time it does it. The rest of it's so brilliantly executed. You can have it, Christopher McQuarrie. You can have it, Tom Cruise. Go ahead. You can have that one.
Well, I think it's safe to say we both recommend Mission Impossible.
Yeah. Oh
Dead
my
Reckoning.
God. See this on the biggest screen you possibly can, which isn't going to be IMAX because Oppenheimer's sealing them all. So you're not going to be able to see
the one in your town, apparently. But yeah. Yeah, just quick final thoughts before we get over to the fan feedback. For me, this movie did pleasantly surprise me, but I think it's because I just kind of let the part one in the title kind of get to me. Like, oh shit, here we go. They're going to be sitting at tables trying to figure out plans, and we're not going to have a couple action sequences, and that'll be it. But it was like nonstop, with the exception of like that initial setup, and then after that, it was just like nonstop. And especially once you get to the car chase and the train sequence, and you mentioned the alleyway, and the women in this movie were like far and away one of the most amazing group of like action women I've ever seen. I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
Rebecca Ferguson was already part of this crew, and she's back. Haley Atwell was a great addition. Palm Clementif was a standout for both of us. Vanessa Kirby, although underused, I thought she was an awesome part of that kind of like female rogues gallery as well. So
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. I love what Tom Cruise does in these movies.
T to the
Going
C.
back to Maverick last year, and then he did it again here this year with Mission Impossible. I mean, it's crazy. It's like every time you're like, one of these is going to fail, and they don't. He just keeps doing what he does, and he really has a commitment to cinema, to the success of the movies, and he's not only doing it, but you can tell he's like a fan of it, and he really wants film to succeed, and he puts his all into it. So
Yeah.
it is a high recommend for me. And
100%.
I did love John Wick 4, but for me, this is the best action movie of the year so far. There you go.
I'd agree.
Dead reckoning. Nick, final thoughts, and then we'll get over to the fan feedback.
Go see it. Biggest screen you possibly can.
There you go. Nick, keeping it short and sweet as always. So we're going to head over to the comments section, Nick, and I have a question picked out from the fan feedback. Guys, thank you so much for throwing us your question this week about Mission Impossible or Tom Cruise or whatever you wanted to ask us. Nick, do you have it pulled up there? Do you have your question, or do you want me to go first?
You go first, buddy.
So, it's funny because sometimes we answer these in the course of the discussion.
Well, it's nice though, because our fans are kind of right along the same line of thinking as us when we're reviewing the film. So I like that.
Well, so Julio's got a couple here, and I'm going to do both. I'm going to do two of them that he asked us, because one of them is going to be kind of quick, and then I'll ask for your take. But let me ask the real one first. So Julio, thank you so much. He says, do you think this should be Cruise's swan song, and he should pass the torch to a new agent? So we were talking about James Bond earlier, which of course that's been around since I think the 60s, right? I believe.
Yeah, a long time.
So obviously they kind of have to, because I mean, actors start aging and dying and whatever. So you kind of have to if you're continuing the franchise. I don't think we're there yet though with Cruise. Like, I still believe Cruise in this role. Like, I never doubted for a second anything this crazy fucker was doing in this movie. Like,
Yep.
I was bought in. I was sold. Obviously, we're going to get part 2 with him of Dead Reckoning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's 61 years old. Like the Harrison Ford thing kind of bothered me a little bit in Indy, because I'm like, the dude's 80. Like, he's not doing this anymore. Like, just go home, watch the game, get a beer and sit on the couch. Like, you don't need to do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, retire. I love Harrison Ford, but like, it's just not as believable to me. You know what I mean? But right now, I still believe it for Cruise, so I'm not really ready for him to pass the torch quite yet. Maybe 5 or 10 years from now, it might be a different story. Nick, what do you think?
The thing you got to remember too is T to the C still doing these stunts. Like, he's still putting himself in these situations. I mean, it's like Keanu Reeves and John Wick. Like, Keanu Reeves is up there too, but he's still putting in the work. He's still putting in all the effort to make like all those action scenes like really, really believable. Now, there will come a point when it's Robert De Niro and the Irishman, like swinging his arms around like a T-Rex, like curb stomping a dude. Like, it'll eventually get to that point. But yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. I think maybe, I mean, no, I don't think it'll happen in part 2, because we would need to establish that character in part 1 if that was going to be a thing. And I don't think we've gotten that far yet. So yeah, maybe part 8 could be like the true passing of the torch to a new agent if they want this franchise to continue. I don't know why they wouldn't. It is insanely lucrative. So yeah. I don't know why they wouldn't, but yeah, no, I still buy Cruise in this role. I still believe Cruise in this role, but yeah, I do wonder if he'd really, really be willing to go for it one more time. Because how do you top this? I mean, we haven't seen part 2 yet, but how do you top this?
I mean, that is the.
But I also wondered how they were going to top Fallout too.
I know. They just keep doing it, man. It's crazy. So he also says to rank the MI queens. So there's really 4 of them in this movie. Here we go. Number 4, Vanessa Kirby. I love her, but she was underused. Number 3, Rebecca Ferguson. I love her. She's an OG, but her fate, I didn't like her fate in this movie. Haley Atwell. Come on, man. She's an absolute
Are we
queen.
ranking them just based on their usage in this movie, or are we just ranking them to rank them?
Well, now that's a different ranking. I'm ranking them in the film.
And
then my number 1 movie, Palm Clemente. But I guess we can do...
I don't know, Julio. I don't think Gerald's really answering in the spirit of the question. I don't know.
All right, well,
but Julio didn't point it out.
Change.
Julio didn't point it out.
Change my ranking, though.
You're just ranking the queens. You're not taking into account. Oh, they didn't use Vanessa Kirby enough in the film. That doesn't matter.
All right. Well, here we go then. Number 1 is Haley Atwell. Number 2 is Vanessa Kirby. Number 3 is Palm Clemente, and number 4 is Rebecca Ferguson. That's my ranking of just them as women, as action women.
Man, this is a tough one. I think you got to do Palm.
I don't think we'll get canceled for this, by the way.
I think you got to do Palm Clemente number 1. I think I got to give it to Rebecca Ferguson number 2, Haley Atwell number 3, Vanessa Kirby number 4. That's mine.
Oh man, my girl Vanessa is hurt right now if she's listening to this. I'm sorry, Vanessa. I love you. What was your one question from the fans you wanted to throw out there, Nicholas?
My goodness. So Paul, our good friend Paul from the Countdown, we've talked about Wayne mentioning T to the C a number of times. I'm going to dismiss his question about will the fabric of space-time hold up if I maintain watching a film a week at the theater. I'm going to ignore that one, Paul.
Oh, man.
And his question was quite simple. Does the film earn its runtime? I think that's a resounding yes. I think, yes, this is entirely all set up for a part 2, but like I said, go back to that one word that I said about this film, the one word, relentless. This film doesn't let up. And I mean, could you maybe snip a couple seconds out here, a couple seconds out there? I know you and I know Paul and I know there's a lot of people that are dreadfully against movies going over like 100 minutes, but I love longer movies. I say give me more of it because you can pace a great movie like this 2 hours and 40 minutes to make it feel like it's less than 2. And that's this movie. This movie just does not let up for me. I couldn't believe it was over when it was over. I was like, no way that was 240 by the time it was over.
Yeah.
So I say yes.
And, Loy Sauce and other people have given me shit about this because my thinking is off. But when I see the runtime of a movie, it will fuck me up going into the movie. And I'll be like, this is too long. I'm going into this. I shouldn't have to be here for 3 hours or whatever. This movie, or I should say when a movie kind of like proves me wrong, then I know I'm going to give it a high score and I know I'm going to love it. And that's what happened here, Paul. Like this is a 2 hour 40 movie, but it felt like maybe 2, like it just went really quickly. I
don't know. They haven't done a review of this yet, right? They haven't released their review of this yet. I don't think so.
I don't know if they've done it, but it hasn't been released yet. But yeah.
I'm eager to see where they land on this. I mean, we know Wayne's going to be fine. Although he's a big Rebecca Ferguson fan, he might be hurt.
I know that was
he might be hurt by that too. But yeah,
I'm hurt by it as well.
I'm eager to see what they thought of it because I love those guys.
Yeah, but in short, it definitely earns this runtime. I mean, it goes out of its way to keep you invested in what's going on. You never have a chance to lose interest or lose focus in what's going on. It's very well paced.
And think about the stakes too.
Great.
Like just to kind of outline that too, in terms of earning its runtime, think about the stakes of what this weapon means, what this entity means. Every government, every shadow organization, everybody is trying to get their hands on this thing. The film throws as many things at you as it does, and it throws as many things at Ethan as it does, because it wants you to understand the threat that this thing possesses if it falls into the wrong hands. And I really think the film sells that hook, line, and sinker. I really firmly believe that the film sells that perfectly. So I think that's why you need that runtime, because you can't just have it be like, oh, here's a couple people here and here's a couple people there and whatever. Like if you want to sell me this is like a world altering doomsday device-ish kind of thing, or savior if it's utilized correctly, or in Ethan's case, he just wants to destroy it. I think if you sell that thing as the potential threat that it potentially could be, I think that's really great. Let me ask you a question, G, before we wrap here, because I didn't even think we got to it in the review. But what do you think of It's not a downbeat ending. It's not a downer ending. They have the key and they know what it unlocks at the end of this, like our heroes do. Like we're not on like an Empire Strikes Back thing, like everything ends on a down note kind of thing here. Like T to the C has the key. I did not mean to rhyme that. I'm sorry. But, we have the key. We know it unlocks the Sevastopol, and now it's going to be that race to find the wreckage of the Sevastopol, because obviously we know it's sitting in like the Baltic Sea. Mm-hmm. So what did you think of that ending? Like, what did you think of it not being a downer ending?
I mean, I like the ending. I mean, a short answer for you. I didn't dislike the ending at all. Like, it left me wanting more for sure, but I could also sense like, oh, they're kind of somewhat wrapping this up. It's probably about to end. And it did. But I think kind of to your point that you made earlier with the ending of this movie, what it does is it just kind of lingers that question in your head. Like, what are they going to do? Like,
yeah.
And I think that's good. I don't think it should be super predictable. Like, oh, now they're going to go down to the ocean. There's going to be a lot of underwater sequences. I mean, maybe there will be. I don't, who knows? But
there's got to be. The sub is on the bottom of the sea. There's got to be underwater sequences here.
There's going to be some. There's going to be some sick. I mean, think of what Cruise and these guys are going to try to do underwater with this. They're going to call James Cameron and ask him for some advice. Probably, who knows? These guys are crazy.
Don't call. What's the submersible company's name? Don't call them.
God, don't call them.
To get some help getting down there. But yeah,
please don't. I had no problems with the ending. Did you? Was that why you were asking?
No. I was just curious because I really loved it, and that was a bit unexpected for me because I expected, knowing this was a part one, I expected our heroes to kind of be back on their heels a little bit and still like way behind. And the film almost hooks you into that ending. It almost sells you that, and then we find out that Ethan stole the key from Gabriel during that final confrontation. That's great filmmaking. That is checking against audience expectations right there, and I love that moment so much.
Gabriel's in the truck, and he's just all deflated.
So good. That scream. He's like, Ethan. I love that, dude. That was so good. So good.
Yeah, that was good. That was. It's great. It's a great rivalry, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
Can't wait.
Part 2. Did they announce the year on part 2 yet?
No idea.
I don't think.
I haven't found out anything about it yet. I'm sure it's out there. I don't really pay attention to any of that kind of stuff anymore. I really used to, but I'm liking more. Like, I kind of disassociated myself from cinema for a while, and I don't really pay attention to the news the way that I used to. Like, when I was on EFG, like, we talked about the news all the time. It was such a big thing. I don't pay attention anymore. I want to be surprised by this stuff when it happens,
Yeah, we don't have to. I'm just curious because I don't think they've announced what year.
I mean, I'll see trailers and stuff for it whenever they come out, and I'll be day one in the cinema like I was for this one to see it. I can't wait. But yeah.
Well, speaking of day one in the cinema, that's it for this week on 2Ps. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, and 8.5 cumulatively from the Ps here. So a high recommend from us. Next week we will be reviewing Greta Gerwig's Barbie on the show. Man, I did my top 10 most anticipated at the top of the year. I don't know if you saw that for 2023, Nick, but number 2 for me was Barbie.
It is Greta Gerwig. This is not. We're not pretending here. This is not us doing whatever. This is Greta Gerwig directing Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling.
Yes.
I'm so excited to see what they do with a Barbie movie. Like, because it's like, I mean, think about like, it's like thinking about like, ooh, David Fincher's making a Facebook movie. What? And then it turns out to be The Social Network, So I'm ready. I'm invested. I'm ready to fall in love with it. I can't wait. The reviews are really positive too, so I'm really
I've been
excited.
Staying away from a lot of it. I muted it on Twitter because people are starting to see it, and I can't see it for another week or so. So I'm just like, hang on, guys. But I am excited to see it. I'm also seeing Oppenheimer this week. But next week we'll be covering Barbie. Nick, I'm looking forward to it. Do you have any kind of like Barbie dolls you could bring with you to the review next week for the camera stuff?
Should. I really
should. You know what we should do? We should have like Barbie sitting in front of the mics.
I've got my Uncle Rico pop figure here.
There you go.
This is. I mean, I guess this is probably. Yeah. This is probably good. Or actually,
all mine are horror.
Parks and Rec fans. I have little Sebastian.
I could do Marcel the Shell.
I love that this has devolved into just us showing our toys now. Is that what our show has become? 3 episodes into the new Ps, and we're just showing our toys on camera now.
All right, guys. Barbie next week. Go see Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning while it's in cinemas. It is stellar if you love action movies.
Unbelievable.
Nick, I love you, man. Bring your Barbie doll next week, and we'll talk about Barbie.
Yeah, everybody take good care of yourselves. Have an absolutely amazing week, and just remember, I believe in you.
I believe in you, and I believe in them. I don't know what that means, but we'll see you next week, man.
I believe I could throw a football over the mountains. That's what I believe, baby.
Hell yeah.